What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to you some exercises we love to build some explosive strength. So one of the keys with explosive strength is how much tension we can create at the start of that initial contraction. And then once that tension has been created, how much force output, and can we continue the force output as the contraction lengthens, if you will. And the biggest thing is, can we do this all in a very short time period? So we're giving you 6 exercises we love. Hopefully you enjoy this. Hopefully this helps. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. We post new videos every Tuesdays and Thursdays, so make sure you subscribe to catch all of them. Hope you enjoy. All right, first up, we're gonna go in overcoming ISO. So lots of different ways we can do this. We're just gonna demo like an overcoming ISO for a back squat. And one reason why I love this one works so great at that initial tension development, right? So it fires up all of our motor units. It gets everything working. Really good for that neuromuscular connection. And one thing with explosive strength is as we get that tension going, right, get everything contracting and we start applying that force, a lot of it is that biochemical process and comes from that relay, right? We don't want there to be a delay between mind and muscle, and hitting overcoming ISOs are one of the best ways we can recruit a lot of motor units, a lot of muscle fibers, and the more muscle fibers we can recruit, the more force we have the potential to output, to develop. So right here, we're just gonna demo. You've seen us do a lot of overcoming ISOs. So remember, strength is super specific. So set up in the position you want for your strength to be developed. So from here, we're just gonna push up as hard as we can. You don't have to go very long, right? Whether it's 4, 5, 6 seconds, anything like that. Find your specific stimulus that you want, the duration, find the joint angle you want to work at. You can get position specific too. Just remember, the biggest key here is going to be force output. Doing these position specific ISOs doesn't mean anything if we're not producing the adequate levels of force. All right, next up, we're going a trap bar speed pull. So I'm going to overlay some clips. One reason why I absolutely love this is, well, actually 2 reasons. Number 1, you get to display high amounts of force very quickly. But number 2, concentric exercises are really good at recruiting a high number of motor units, especially those higher threshold motor units. So I love doing this speed pull because you can put a decent amount of weight. We have a VBT, so a velocity tracker, so we can work within specific velocity ranges for the adaptation that we want. So for example, if we want that like accelerative strength, right, then we're gonna kind of work, we like to typically work around like 0.6 to 0.7. I am of that philosophy where I think if you go way too fast with load, it's not like fast enough to induce the adaptations you're looking for. If you go way too heavy and you're trying to do an explosive movement, then it's just too slow. So I like working within that like 0.6 to 0.7, 0.75 velocity range for any of you with a VBT. But this is a fantastic exercise. The biggest key too that I tell all of our athletes is at the bottom, I already want you tense, right? As you're down here, before you even start to pull, I don't want you to be relaxed. I want tension on that bar, and I want you firing everything. Right now, everything is contracted for me. So when I make that decision to pull, boom, I'm up as fast as I can. It's not that I have to tense and then go, right? That tension's already occurred. So as I say pull, right, my body can just pull. There's no delay. Number 3, one that I really like for working on explosiveness coming like horizontally is going to be a split stance med ball chest pass. So we're gonna set up in that stance right here, very similarly to how we would explode out. So notice how I'm on the balls of my feet. That shin's kind of pointed forward, right? I'm not up here. I'm tucked, I'm down as if I'm going to explode out in a sprint. From there, I'm gonna push off both feet, right? I'm gonna go forward and I'm gonna slam that ball into the wall as hard as I can. So from here, I'm gonna be down like this, push, boom, into the wall as hard as you possibly can. Like I said, big key is you wanna push off both feet. Here, boom. If I just push off my front, then I'm leaving some stuff, some juice in the back, right, that I could put into the load. If I'm just pushing off the back, then I'm not getting that work from the front. So make sure we're pushing off both. Keep those hips down as if you're shooting forward. I like this one because it is that higher velocity movement. It's not a lot of load, and it just allows you to work on getting a little bit more force output into that movement pattern, so that as you're starting, let's say you're working on a sprint start, for example, you have that memory, that ability to apply even more force, trying to overcome some type of lightly loaded resistance. All right, next up, we're going hurdles. I'm not gonna go on too much about hurdles because last week we actually posted a whole video on why we think hurdles are low-key the greatest jump exercise for athletes. So I will tag that in this video. But I love hurdles specifically for this video. I'm gonna talk about one reason, and it's that pre-tension that you have. So when you're coming down from the hurdle, your mind is starting to anticipate that landing, right? When you get advanced enough, you start anticipating that landing. So you have that pre-tension, which allows you to land, to store elastic energy and utilize it, right? Our tendons, we're really good at storing energy, but it's just, do we have the ability to utilize it, or do we take too long to where it dissipates? So training hurdles is a great way to work on utilizing that stored energy, working on changes in momentum, right? There's so many different hurdle jumps we can do that work on changing momentum. And at the end of the day, that is one of the keys when it comes to explosive strength in the sporting field, right? It's not necessarily just how fast you can pull a trap bar, but it's how quickly can you create loads of force to move yourself, or maybe some implement depending on your sport, in a really aggressive, really quick way. So by doing hurdles, it's so much force output, it's so much force production to counteract a landing, but then utilizing all that, like I said, in a very, very short time period. And we have to remember that constraint with explosive strength. It's how much force output we can create in a very short time span. And in order to be really effective, we have to have that pre-tension, or that ability to create that tension so we can apply force and do all this. So hurdles are an amazing way to work on that ability. All right, next up, we're gonna go a single leg RDL ISO into an explosive movement, so a knee drive or a box jump. What I love about this exercise is we're gonna use a relatively heavy load, and we're gonna hold it in that lengthened position, and then we're immediately gonna get into a rapid concentric movement, okay? So I'm just using this RDL version as an example. There's lots of different things we can do with this, right? This is just the one I chose for today. So we're gonna get here and we're gonna load this RDL. So I'm gonna hold this position 6, 8, 10, honestly, you can even go like 15 seconds, and then you're gonna drop and you're gonna explode, reload and explode. So you're working on getting really strong in that lengthened state, holding it here, kind of desensitizing those protective elements, and then exploding out. So I like working that ISO lengthened, getting really, really strong, and then following it up. Another one that we do, as I mentioned, is gonna be with the box. Same idea, right? I'm gonna be here holding this ISO, drop, boom, explode up. Something like that, some derivative of it. This is a great way to kind of work on that force output, sustaining that force, and then being able to explode out, get everything contracted and recruited, and then apply it really quickly. Another exercise that I absolutely love, we're gonna specifically talk about hang cleans, but acceptable options are also any other Olympic lift or any derivative of an Olympic lift. Hang cleans in particular, I absolutely love. The hip extension and the amount of force production needed in a very short time period, to me, it's just one of the best Olympic lifts we can do. There's so much correlation between hang cleans and that ability to express high amounts of force in a very short time period. And that's one thing I love about Olympic lifting, is it is that high force output in a very short period of time, right? So obviously it depends on the type of athlete, what you're going for. Some people can get away without doing Olympic lifts and working on explosive strength in other ways. But I think that there is merit to being able to produce high amounts of force in a short time period in one exercise, such as a hang clean, for example, or depending on a power clean, if that suits your sport and you as an athlete. So being able to load it up and utilize that, I'll say, explosive capabilities. I read this in a book, and it's so true. people will often talk about doing, heavier movements and how it creates that, it's performed slowly, which is absolutely valid, right? The heavier you go, typically the slower it's performed. But with Olympic lifts, in order to execute the movement, it cannot be done slowly, or else it's either really crap form or you just can't do it, right? So as the book says, I've never seen a slow hang clean. And that's one thing that's super awesome, is the more you load it, you still have to perform the movement rapidly, right? It's not going to be as fast as just a max velocity movement as going out and sprinting, but there is merit in my eyes to being able to move higher amounts of load at that speed. So Olympic lifting, I think, is absolutely amazing. All right, number 7, last one. This isn't necessarily an exercise, but it's more of a topic. We're just going to say, in order to build explosive strength, lifting heavy and doing max velocity movements. So I know that with the Olympic lifts, I said I think there's merit to blah, blah, blah. You just heard that. Super true. In addition to, right? It's not this or that. In my opinion, it's in addition to. So having a day where we are lifting really heavy, right? I'm not talking 1 rep max. I am not a fan of 1 rep max, but I am talking heavy efforts, maybe a 4 rep, right? Where we are going heavy, we are working on all of that, muscular stimulation and working on the high threshold recruitment, everything firing at once, the recruitment rate, the ability to recruit as many muscle fibers as possible. And that comes through heavy lifting. So I think that it is imperative that our athletes are lifting heavy. And I also think that it's imperative that our athletes are working max velocity. So yes, I mean sprinting, right? Top end sprinting, working your accelerations, working on your jumps, working on your plyometrics, throws as well. These things are invaluable because it takes so much capacity to be able to execute these movements at high speed. So one of the best things we can do, if we're just even talking from like a cognitive perspective, is going out and sprinting. Being able to produce that much force and that amount of co-contraction and coordination is invaluable. So in addition to all these exercises, make sure you have it in your program that you are lifting heavy, because that, like I said, in addition to all of the recruitment, everything there, it's great for that CNS, but also it kind of allows that ability for the ceiling to push up a little bit higher to express higher force potential. Right now, in order to produce that high force at a fast pace, we do need to be doing these higher velocity movements, right? Being strong in itself is super fantastic, but it's not going to do you really any good if you have slow strength, right? We need to be able to produce this force really fast. So that's where these movements of high velocity tie in. And also it's just great to work on that co-contraction, everything I just said. So make sure you have those 2 implements in there. Make sure you are getting your jumps, your throws, your sprints, plyometrics, those really high velocity, and make sure you are getting your heavy lifting. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully you enjoy. Please subscribe, please like, please drop us a comment. It really supports our channel and we appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one.